Okay, I see by the clock on the wall that it's 3 o'clock. I want to call to order the Board of Directors regular meeting study session for Thursday, June 16th, 2022. Can I have a roll call, please?
Director Grasha.
Here.
Director Sewell. Director Duncan.
Here.
Vice President Wright.
Here.
President Martin.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Counselor, would you go over the rules of procedure?
Yes, according to the rules of procedure that have been adopted by this board, all notice meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as procedural guidelines. Directors should refrain from responding directly to public comments at meetings of the board. The president is responsible for maintenance of order and decorum at all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on the subject shall have been given an opportunity to speak. No board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting. The board president regulates the amount of time to be dedicated to a particular agenda item.
Thank you. Item 5, public input. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit the comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the agenda. We have a public comment, Dory?
Yes, President Martin, we have Pamela Edmondson here. Pamela, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Hello again, this is Pamela Edmondson, and thank you for letting me speak to everyone there at the board and at the Mission Springs Water District. I want to say thank you for the June 10th groundbreaking. It was very nice, even though it was hot and the road was bumpy getting there. There were many good speeches, short speeches, and dignitaries, and the refreshments were great. And my only regret is that I did not have time, because I was talking with everybody, to go and stick my cane into the hole for the groundbreaking and just see how big a hole you had dug. Secondly, I would like to thank you, Mission Springs Water District, for the groundbreaking 101 meetings. And I believe our next one will be on next Thursday, June the 23rd at 6 o'clock. We were all very inspired and awed with the information that was given and that we received. And then my last thing I would like to mention here is that a very good thank you to Marianne for being our liaison for the Friends of the Library. And this next coming the Saturday after this next one, on June the 25th, from 3 to 5 o'clock, is their 1-year anniversary and a fiesta celebration. And again, from 3 to 5, there'll be a mariachi band, Mexican pastries. Some of the city council members, I think, are supposed to come, and Manuel Perez will also speak. And also there'll be some discussion, I think, on the burger grant that the Friends of the Library received, and all the great things that they're going to try and do with the grant. So we invite you to come and to stay tuned for more good news about the grant and all the new programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela.
President Martin, that concludes public comment.
Okay, moving on to item 6, Human Resources Report.
We'd do that on
Monday?
Monday, yes.
Okay. Moving on to item 7, Resolution 2022-08, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Mission Springs Water District proclaiming a local emergency exists by re-ratifying the proclamation of a state of emergency by Executive Order NS-09-21 and reauthorizing remote teleconference meetings of the legislative bodies of the Mission Springs Water District for the period June 23rd, 2022 to July 22nd, 2022, pursuant to the provisions of the Ralph M. Brown Act. That item is fairly self-explanatory. It's unfortunately become a routine item on our agenda. Any members of the board have a comment or a question? Okay, moving on to item 8. Public hearing resolution 2022-09 to establish water standby assessments. It is recommended to adopt resolution 2020-09, making a determination to fix, levy, and collect water service standby assessments for fiscal year 2022-2023. Again, this is a routine. We go through this every year. Does anybody have any questions or comments concerning the resolution?
You want me to?
No.
Like I said, it's pretty self-explanatory unless you have
It
something.
it is exactly that. We do it, we've done it every year for the 17 years I've been here.
Okay.
And with sewer is going to be the same thing.
And item 9 is, as General Manager Wallen just stated, is basically the same thing. Public hearing resolution 2022-10 to establish sewer standby assessments. It is recommended to adopt resolution 2022-10, making a determination to fix, levy, and collect sewer service standby assessments for fiscal year 2022-2023. Again, this is routine. We do it every year. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
None for me.
Okay,
Are you on item 9 or 10?
this is item 9. Moving on to item 10, fiscal year 2022-2023. It is recommended to adopt resolution 2022-11, adopting the operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 2022-2023. Before we get started on that, I understand, let me back up a second, that when we had the groundbreaking, I mentioned that we had 2 grants available to us, and that we also had a commitment for funding at 1% for the balance. We also were a top contender for a grant, in which case the loan wouldn't be necessary. And I understand Mr. Ledbetter has some news for us today.
Yes, and I thought, well, I mean, it is really good news. And Steve, did you want to share that information? Because I think it's such good news that,
Ledbetter, better.
yeah.
We have multiple Steves on.
Oh, Steve Ledbetter. Yes, excuse me, Mr. Ledbetter. I am sorry. You know, and I think at this point, it would be good if we just heard this good news, because it really set the stage for our budget review.
Point of order, Mr. President. This kind of news should be backed up with documentation. Making assertions that certain things have happened without the documents being forwarded to the board prior to the meeting is makes me uncomfortable, considering there's been so many things said that have proven to be untrue by members of this board and members of the staff at this agency, that I would like anything that is alleged here right now to be distributed to board members and the press immediately upon the.
Well, it's in a public meeting, so it'll be public information.
Point of order, Mr. President, would you get your board member under control, please?
Are you through? Have you made your point, sir? Okay, moving on to Mr. Ledbetter. Go ahead.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon. Good afternoon, President Martin, members of the board. I spoke with the State Water Resource Control Board yesterday, and they reported that the Assistant Deputy Director at the State Water Resource Control Board has approved Mission Springs project to continue moving forward at 100% grant funding. And that's a combination of the groundwater grant program, the small community wastewater program, and the infrastructure appropriations. What that means is last summer, we did a long process through legal, our legal department, our accounting department, and our engineering department working through a draft funding agreement. What happens next is it's already with the contracts department at the State Water Resource Control Board, and they are working on the final funding agreement. We will not have that documentation for about 2 to 3 months because it goes through the contracting department. It goes back through the state board's legal, environmental, technical departments, and then it comes to Mission Springs for a final review and signature. So we're still got about a 2 to 3 month process before we get that physical document in hand. But we do have verbal confirmation that the Assistant Deputy Director has approved not just our Mission Springs project, but a slate of projects that are now moving forward through the final funding agreement.
Thank you, Steve. With that said, I mean, this is going to be, such an exciting time, but this process always, I mean, we've been working on this project for well over a decade. We've carefully put this thing together. This information that Steve has checked with us is the moment that we've been waiting for. I've always known that once we get this information, and we've been authorized to share this with you, and that's what we're going to do. And basically it would, and even if everything failed with this project, as far as grants, even if we didn't get the 16 million, the state has reviewed our financial situation, has said that they would help us finance the project because we are in a good financial condition in order to do that. And that review has been going on for the past several years, but part of the process is us going out and trying to acquire grants. And it appears that the final signature that we needed is in place. We did get verbal confirmation of that. And that's going to be something that we hopefully will be able to finalize by approximately August or September. We can't do anything about that. The state is going to take however much time they feel is necessary to go through their process. We need to get the documents together. The approval has to happen first. So it's a process that we don't control. With that said, would you like me to introduce the budget?
Yes, please.
Okay. We've presented this budget at the workshop. We've answered questions. We've gone over the financing on the plant, dozens of times. And as everyone knows, we have begun construction of the water reclamation facility, and we have approval from the state to be able to apply any costs that we incur on that construction to the financing program that they have committed to. We have been working with, like I said, for over a decade to get to this point. And I think everyone should understand, for those who are thinking we have a choice, we don't have a choice. We need to build this plant, and we need to start building it today. It isn't a matter that somebody's going to stop this. We need this capacity. The location of the plant and the construction of the plant will greatly improve the future of the communities we served, primarily Desert Hot Springs. So let me be very, very clear. We need to move forward right now. Internally and externally, we've had dozens of meetings to be sure that we are all well prepared and that you were informed. And the budget is fiscally sound and has been reviewed and vetted by everyone. So with that said, Arturo, would you like to make your presentation? I know the board has already seen a detailed presentation, but we'd like to go over that and be clear on what we need to do in this process of adopting the budget.
Yes, thank you, General Manager Wallum and President Martin and distinguished members of the board. Like Mr. Wallum said, the budget workshop was conducted on June 1st and is on YouTube, on our YouTube channel for review if anyone would like to see it. What I'm going to do today is present a summarized version of the operating budgets while also presenting the fiscal year 2023 proposed classification plan and salary matrix. The salary matrix was not changed from prior year. It is the same information that you received last year. We were able to implement the changes that were identified by the class and comp study that was presented by COP and Associates. And finally, I will also be presenting the 2023 capital improvement and vehicle and equipment budgets. So here's the process that we go through to prepare and complete the budget as required by the Constitution of the State of California. The board will vote on this budget on Monday following today's presentation. The key budget assumptions were obviously normal operating revenues with increase in grants, in implementation of the class and comp study with one additional employee requested in the wastewater department that will help get ready for the construction of the regional plant, and other normal increases in operating expenses. Here is the classification plan showing a total of 53 employees. 2 of those are in the executive team, 5 in administration. As you can see in finance, which includes customer service and field service department, 14 employees are full-time positions, I should say. And finally, in operations of 32, which is expected considering that that's basically the bulk of our work that we do at the district. Again, the salary matrix is the same as in prior year, and it shows where each of the positions fall in relation to their pay. I'm just going to scroll over quickly so you can see if you were to compare this to last year's, it is the same salary matrix. And again, the reason I'm presenting this information is because you are expected to vote on this on Monday.
I have a question. I was just informed by the general manager that there's some kind of an agreement with the state that's mentioned in this budget and as income. And I'm not seeing any agreement in here from the state saying that they're going to 100% fund the, where would I find that in the attachments? I see a lot of attachments here. I think there's 7 of them.
Director Gracia, it is not in here because we do not have that paper on hand. And as the finance information is presented to you, we can only present information that is accurate and true based on the information we have right now. So you'll see actually in the information I'm going to present that even without that piece of paper, we are set to accomplish those goals that were mentioned earlier on.
Right. And what about, I've looked through this thing for 2 days now since I received it, and I haven't seen any allocations set aside for the $10 million fine that we're facing that will be required to be paid in October. Can you point to where you've included that?
And again,
Irrelevant.
as you know,
You're getting off
This is-
topic.
excuse
There is no $10 million.
This is a board meeting, not a staff meeting, Mr. General Manager. This is between the 5 directors. This is the director's budget. This is what you expect us to provide you. And it needs to be complete and the public needs to.
You are out of
assured.
order, Mr. Gracia.
No, I'm
Yes,
not.
you are.
You're out of order.
You were not called to speak, and I let you proceed until you go in on this rant. I'm sorry, but that's inappropriate, and I'm not going to allow it. So go ahead, Arturo.
Sure. When looking at the functional expenses, the major items, revenue and expenses, the major items here, as you can see, is an increase in property taxes, in grants, and in expenses. The majority is primarily in salaries and wages. The largest increase is actually, when looking at the this report, is at the bottom in the capital improvements budget of $87 million. And I will go over that in detail later on. And that represents a $56 million increase related to the regional plant and administration building.
If I may interrupt for just a moment, Russell Betts has a question.
I'm happy to wait until public comment if you would prefer.
Thank you. We'll allow Mr. Seha to finish his presentation.
Thank you.
As you know, and we've been presenting this information over the several months now in our internal financial statements, the district has been building up the reserves in anticipation for the regional plan that has been planned for years. And we would not be moving forward with it if we didn't have any grants guaranteed from the state. It has always been planned that 50% of the plant would be built through grants and 50% through a loan from the state revolving fund at a lower than normal interest rate. The state would have never agreed to fund or finance this project without vetting the district's finances. And like the consultant with TKE reported, there was a verbal information presented. However, because it is still in verbal form, that numbers are not reflected in this budget because we can only go by what we know to be for sure at this time. As new developments come to Desert Hot Springs and population increases, we have to prepare for the surge in demand to our water and sewer system. In addition to an administration building that not only sustains that growth, but encourages customers and potential talented employees alike. The 2023 debt payments, as you can see in here, that is budgeted for in the current year, principal payments due, is tied all to sewer projects and IDE that are all secured through assessment districts, meaning we collect assessments from the County of Riverside and turn around and pay the debt that was taken out to construct those projects. That means that both the water and sewer funds have 100% capacity for debt, including the general fund, where we are proposing the new building to be funded through, which means that the collection of property taxes will pay for the annual debt payments required to build the administration building. And what that means for our customers is no rate increases, as those payments are not going to be covering the administration building. Later on in the general manager's report, we also show for the April financial statements that the current cash balance for the district is $46.8 million, with property taxes that were collected in May of $4.3 million. The funding is there to sustain these projects. Keep in mind that we are not going to turn around and simply go and spend all this money if you approve this budget. The policies that are in place by this board require that we keep you informed about project status and request approval for contracts, payments, and changes in budget. We cannot be the reason a developer chooses another city to build infrastructure because we are not ready. And now I'm going to go over the capital improvement report that shows that we have completed $8 million worth of projects as of this year and are going to be closed as of June 30, 2022. And a summary of the proposed capital spending of $87.2 million, which is in the last column stated fund in 2022-2023. If you look at last year's budget, we reported that we were planning on spending $33 million, of which only $4.9 million were spent for those projects that were required to keep us going through that pandemic. And again, just because we have a budget of $87 million does not mean we're gonna turn around and spend $87 million on day one of the budget if approved. And finally, on the last report, we show the vehicles and equipment also show $586,000 that is going to be closed for projects already completed as of June 30, 2022, excuse me, and also planning on funding in 2022 and 2023, $580,000 as for 2023 again. And at this time, I will answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, any questions from the board concerning the budget? Nancy?
I have one, please.
In a minute. Nancy, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Arturo. Okay, so I know that the 68 million has been approved by the state, and approval by the state. They're not going to tell Steve Ledbetter that he can announce it in a public meeting if it's not a done deal. Just have to go back down to staff and do all the paperwork. But my question is, once we get that 68 million, I don't know if we'd get it all at one time. I don't know how they're going to give it. Well, but how would that work into the budget? How would you work it into the budget at that time?
Of course, once, as you know, we do always come back at mid-year in December, in January, to update our budget for anything that has changed significantly from the time the budget is passed. At that point in time, we will present updated information, not only in what's expected in the grant number up here. Let me come back. See, currently we have $25 million in grants, known grants that we know are coming in. Half of that is for the wastewater plant. And then also in expenditures and loan proceeds, because the grant happens, we get reimbursed after we expend those amounts. Therefore, we request a reimbursement from the state, and then those monies come back to us. Because of that reason, we are going to be required to go out and get some loans to carry us for that duration of time until we start collecting those funds from the state. And again, when we present this information come January, you will not see loan proceeds of $33.9 million, knowing and hopefully getting that final report that says we are getting the wastewater plant 100% funded.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Randy, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just one. I had a phone ringing in my ear. I think Arden answered my question. When we start getting this money back from the state, is that going to include funds that we've spent up to this point, clear back to, EIRs and surveys and plan design, that kind of stuff?
Yes, and I think Steve can answer that.
Yeah, please.
How that, yes.
No, we did not request reimbursement for the design portion of the project, but we are eligible for reimbursement from October 2021 forward.
Okay, all right.
I have,
And we haven't done any heavy expenses up to that point, did we? I mean, the construction didn't start till this year.
No, I don't have the exact number, but we spent around 2 million, I want to say, throughout the design course, not the full 10 years, but the real design we did with AECOM, the environmental we did with Tom Dotson and Associates. So that number is right around 2 million. And we didn't include that for reimbursement because we wanted to show that that was part of kind of our buy-in or contribution to the project, and we only requested construction dollars. And the reason being is we would have had to do the whole 2 to 3 year SRF process before we started design to really be able to get reimbursed for it. So we put that on a parallel track with design, paid for design out of pocket or out of capital budget, excuse me, and then just requested for construction reimbursement.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, Director Gracia.
yes, thank you. I'm been combing this thing, like I said, for days now. And another thing that I'm seeing lack of funding provided for 2 years from now. My understanding is that the state on the chromium-6 issue has the ability to shut down all those wells that we have, which I understand all but one of our wells exceed the legal limit for chromium-6. And I'm concerned that with nothing in here providing for the correction of that we may be behind. It's expected to cost somewhere between 75 and $100 million to this agency to make those wells produce the water that is potable. Right now, we're delivering water that the State Department of Health and the State Department of Water Resources considers unsafe for human consumption, yet we're telling our ratepayers that it's the best tasting water in the world. So I'm finding a little conflict there and wondering how we can be expected to go into the community and say that we passed a budget that doesn't address those issues. It's very challenging for me to be able to get on board with this kind of thing when such disparity exists between reality and what this agency delivers as far as propaganda to our electorate. Thank you.
Okay, Arden, you
Oh,
want to comment on that? what you
actually,
said?
Brian has been working with CVWD and the group on this, and I think he could share with you, but we have no idea what that standard is going to be, and it's not in place, and it's not going to be $75 million. It's going to be, something that everyone's going to be faced with, and whether we like it or not, we're going to have to meet those standards, and we will. Case, did you want to?
I just wanted to make one point. In the capital budget and continuing appropriations, on line 28 is a Chrome 6 compliance study. So in the budget, there is a line item specifically for Chrome 6 and the evaluation of the new MCL. There is currently not an MCL for Chrome 6. Therefore, we are not held to any obligation to treat for Chrome 6 at this point. It is still in draft form. It has not been an actual minimum contaminant level. Once that is a minimum contaminant level, we will then have 2 years of a compliance window. And as General Manager Woolham said, nothing has been established yet. That's still going through the comment and draft period. Thank you.
Yeah, one point I want to bring up too is that presently, as you say, there is not a standard, but there is a federal standard that applies to the rest of the country. Are any of our wells exceeding the federal standard at this time?
No, the federal standard is actually at 50 parts per billion. The state of California is looking at something 5 times more stringent at 10 parts per billion.
Right. Okay. But none of ours exceed the federal standard.
No.
Okay.
All of our wells exceed the state minimum, except for one, is my understanding. And we need to get on board with reality here in this budget. You actually reduced the amount, as my understanding, for a chromium 6 study than what it had been, or certainly you hadn't made any expenditures to get us to the point where this board could be confident in our conversations with the people that elect us about the safety of their water, other than this nonsensical stuff that some board members spread around as being the best tasting water in the world, when the state Department of Health considers it unsafe for human consumption, period.
Okay. Anything further?
Other than the state hasn't said that our water's unsafe to drink.
And I'd also like to say that when this Chrome 6 thing first came out a few years back, it was very, very expensive, according to everything that they know at that point of how to deal with Chrome 6. But there's been a lot of research, and a lot of big water agencies have now found much cheaper ways to deal with the Chrome 6. So, it's not even when if it does ever become an issue, if less than what we have. And I don't think all of our wells, are they? All of our wells
No,
are all but one?
no,
I thought there was just one or two.
no, that is not true.
Okay, what is the truth?
Depending on the testing and how far you want to go back and look at averages, it could be anywhere from 4 to 6, maybe 7 wells of our 13. But
Periodically.
But they're marginally over.
Yeah, marginally and periodically.
Correct.
And, yeah, right. Oh, yeah, okay. But not over the federal 50.
No. They're all right around, the ones that I'm mentioning
Around
are
20,
between 7 and 13.
7 and 13.
That's right.
All the remainder are less than that.
And so the state's temporary, they're kind of looking at 10. We don't know what it's going to be, but that's what.
That is the draft
So
contaminant level.
we're at 7 to 13. Okay, well, that's like, okay, thanks.
Do you want to say something?
Can I make one clarification, please?
Yes, Randy, go ahead.
Thank you. Those 2 gold medals on the wall behind you are from Berkeley Springs International Water Tasting Contest, which is a worldwide contest. It has nothing to do with the state of California. It has nothing to do with Mission Springs Water District deciding how our water tastes. That's an international competition. And we have, 7, 8 gold medals?
10.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Anything further from Arturo? Okay, you all have the budget in hand. We'll be voting on that come on Monday.
President Martin, we do have members of the public.
Oh,
that
yes,
have
I
some
forgot.
questions.
I'm sorry.
We'll
Pamela
start with
Edmondson, you
Pamela
have a
Edmondson.
comment?
Yes, this is Pamela Edmondson again. I have several questions, and I do apologize, I was unable to attend the study session on, I guess it was last week, I'm trying to remember when, but I had some family issues. A cousin of mine passed away back in Tennessee, and I kind of got delegated to make a lot of the phone calls and was getting phone calls, so could not attend the meeting. So I have a few questions which may be irrelevant, but just things that I would like to know for my own personal interest. The first one being, it looked like from one of the resolutions that you're going to pass on Monday that you have a total budget of 114 million. So and my second question here is, my screen reader doesn't read very well, so I wanted to check that 114 million. Does that cover some of the things that Mr. Gracia or some of the things that are not explained in just the general budgets that are in the PDFs that we received? My second question here now is, I always estimate my revenues low and my expenses high. You have increased these revenues from what I could tell, and what is there to substantiate these revenues? You've mentioned some things already, but again, with interest rates coming up, just the life itself, can you really account for these increases in revenues and where the money is going to be coming from? And then my third question here is, with these increases in revenues, will you be able to hire new employees, cover any unexpected things like the Chromium 6, and even maybe pave the road? Are you paving the road to go even to the water treatment plant for the sewer? I'm not sure the correct terminology here. I'm having trouble getting my own roads repaired because the city says they don't have the funds. So anyhow, those are my general questions. And then one overall question that I have, last year's budget for 2021 and 2022, how did you do with it? How close did it come to meet the specifications of what your budget was? And that's all.
Those
Okay.
questions
Thank
would
you.
all be for Arturo.
Yes, but I don't know that we can have a back and forth conversation with the,
Can.
okay, all right, yeah. Arturo, could you care to respond to the?
Yes, of course. Great observation on the $114 million presented for the budget. That is what we are required to present per state guidelines. They provide a number of the population percentage in comparison to last year's appropriations. And what we do is basically use those two numbers to come up with the following year's appropriations based on the growth value and the population value that they provide. In using last year's number, that was about $106 million. So multiplying those two brings us to the 114, which basically states the state says we cannot go over as our approved budget because it will not be sustained based on the information presented. Secondly, to answer your second question, yes, we're very conservative in the revenues compared to last year, simply because the pandemic is still not over. We are looking at all of our new connections, and that's how we come up with our revenues. We look at our base charge compared to how many connections we have. We multiply that times the monthly fees that we collect, and that's how we come up with our revenue. In fact, using all the new connections that happen throughout the year, not only for water meters, but also for sewer connections, on top of the front footage charges. And again, that's based on history that we have for the new development coming in through the engineering department, to all the standby charges of all the properties that we know that have not connected to our water and sewer lines. And so, yes, very good information or good question that you presented as well, because we do have to be conservative. And I will be presenting also the internal financial statements through April 2022, which shows we are ahead of budget by roughly $2 million. So because of the pandemic and because of everything that's going on and the uncertainties, We have been very careful with our expenditures, and not only that, but again, you brought up a great point about with revenues being conservative. We were last year as well, and those revenues are coming in higher than we're budgeted for at the same time.
May I ask just one follow-up question here?
Go ahead.
How about the interest rate hikes? Are they going to have any influence that you can foresee, at least right now?
Yeah, in fact, one of them just happened yesterday of a quarter of, 0.75 levels on the interest on the rate. And so because we are a water district and because a lot of our projects are tied to conservation in one way or another, helping the community, we have available to us other grants and debt that we can go after that will be lower than your normal market per se, simply because it is tied to the state has an interest in making sure that those projects come through because it does help the community and they like to put their name to helping, with those projects. And so we always qualify for low interest loans like the state fund, revolving fund, which is the one we're going after. Right now, interest rates are going up to about roughly 4.5%. That interest rate that we're getting from the state would be about a 1% rate.
Yeah, I think to add to that, to answer Pamela's question, is that the interest rates and that you're seeing raising really, we've locked into the low interest SRF rates. This should, and which is for our existing situation, you could say. So they're not going to have as much influence as in general when we get, are we going to go out? If we were going to go out and get loans, that might have some influence, but that wasn't, we've been approved to go through the SRF program. Is that correct, Arturo?
Correct.
And I'm sorry, here again, one other question. Is there room for expansion of new employees for, putting in the road to the sewage plant?
We haven't been required to put that road in yet, but we might be expected to. Maybe we can share the cost with Amazon.
Need something to keep the dust.
Thank you
down.
very, very much.
Okay, I understand Mr. Betts is also waiting to speak.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing me this time, Mr. Chair. Wow, those were some really good questions by Pamela Edmondson. That's an interesting thought on the paving of the road there. That's anyhow, this is a budget comment question. About 7 months ago, I had asked her some questions, some confirmation regarding the spill at the Horton plant. And I got from the general manager, Arden, that yes, indeed, there had been an unauthorized breach or there had been a breach and that there was a fine, potential fine that was hanging out there. And then we've seen recently the DWA got fined, I think, what was it, $1 million for a breach that they had, which Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, could it's not my meeting to call for a point of order, but I would just like to be able to get my statement out without being interrupted by a barrage of people jumping in all over because they don't like what I'm saying. Mr. Chair, can I ask for my time?
Yes, go ahead.
Could you please ask the other people to hold their comments and maybe get a piece of paper out and write down their notes?
Go ahead, Mr. Betts.
Thank you. I think I heard the attorney at the beginning say that. So anyhow, there's a fine that's hanging out there, and I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. And if the amount is not $1 million from DWA, maybe the Desert Sun got it wrong. I don't know. But you got a potential fine hanging out there of $10 million. And it seems to me a legitimate question, not irrelevant, to say, how is this being treated in the budget? Please take that as a literal question. I just would like to know, how is a fine like that typically handled in a budget? 10 million would be a rather significant amount. Probably end up, who knows what it's going to be, if it's going to be any at all. So that's my question. Simple question. How's that being handled? Thank you.
Real quick. Part of my disagreement with Director Gracia is the fact that we were never facing a $10 million fine. I believe the maximum was $9 million. And that was what was put in the paper. I
Well,
realized
that's
that
splitting hairs between
You're-
10
you're
million. I'll
interrupting me,
correct
sir.
myself, 9
you're
million.
interrupting me.
Sorry, I'll correct myself, 9 million then.
Okay, 9 million. Also, there's been a lot of communication back and forth, and I don't think we're ready to provide at this point, unless you want to provide any information.
John.
Yes, Mr. Pinkney.
Yes, just briefly. So, yeah, there's not going to be a $9 million fine or anywhere near that. We've been having discussions with the regional board and working to resolve the matter, and we've made a lot of progress, but those discussions are confidential, and so we can't really disclose the substance of those conversations until we finalize the arrangement.
Mr. Chair, could I ask?
Just a moment. I'm not.
We're way off of the question. I didn't ask for any of these answers.
You brought it up, sir, when you were.
No, I didn't I brought up a very specific
Okay,
question.
that's enough. You're cut off.
Thank you. Goodbye.
One of the things that was another mistake that Councilman Betts made was the fine for DWA. Nancy, can you clarify that?
Yeah, it was like 150,000-60,000 they lowered it to, and they ended up doing a project of some kind to compensate, to use the money. So they really didn't actually pay a fine. And that's what usually happens. The 9.5 million, what it was in the newspaper, that was somebody else made those. They took what the maximum fines could be. I don't think I've ever seen a maximum fine actually used, but the maximum fine could be for all the violations that were noted in the NOV. And if you got the maximum, I guess 9.5 was the million they came up with, but that number was never, ever put out there by the regional board.
Thank you.
Point of order. That the board did.
You're not cleared to speak, sir.
Okay.
Let's see. Are we through with the budget part?
I believe so.
Okay. Anything else, Arturo?
Anything else?
No, thank you for your time.
Okay. Moving on to item 11, resolution 2022-14, notice of general district election for November 8th, 2022, and establishment of deposit for optional candidates statement is recommended to adopt the resolution number 2022-14 and authorize the district secretary to notify the county registrar of voters that candidates will be responsible for costs associated with the candidate's statement. Arden, do you have anything additional?
This is a standard process we go through, just requirements by the county that we need to do every time we have an election, and this year will be an election.
All right. And moving on to item 12, resolution 2022-15, addition of delinquent accounts to the county tax rolls is recommended to adopt resolution 2022-15, requesting addition of delinquent water and sewer charges and other fees of $5 or more to the 2022-2023 Riverside County tax rolls. Again, that's another routine and pretty self-explanatory. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Nothing, just exactly what you said. We go through this every year. At this time, every year, you're going to see a lot of house cleaning items here because it is that time of year when we need to put things in place for the following fiscal year.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board on item 12? Okay. Item 13, contract agreement with Urban Habitat for annual landscape maintenance for district facilities for 2022-2023. Is recommended to authorize the general manager to approve a contract agreement with Urban Habitat title annual landscape maintenance for district facilities for fiscal year 2022-2023 for a not to exceed amount of $70,100 plus 10% contingency for a total of $77,110,000 for a period of 1 year, and authorize the general manager do all things necessary to complete the project. General Manager Wallem.
Director of Operations, Danny Friend, will present the information on this item.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board. What you have in front of you today, this afternoon, is a routine item that you've seen in past years. Each year we go out to bid publicly on our client bids portal, and we seek bids to address our annual landscape and maintenance for all of our facilities. This includes approximately 36 locations, the admin campus, our corporate yard, the wastewater plant, and all of our reservoirs, wells, and booster station sites. This, as you can see towards the analysis, we did receive 3 bids. The lowest bid is Urban Habitat. The amount of $70,100 does fall within the general manager's threshold. However, once we apply a 10% contingency to that, it takes us to the threshold where the board of directors has to approve. This proposal, or this agreement, actually is for 1 year for fiscal year 2022-23 and allows for 3 additional 1-year terms should we actually feel fit to move forward with that. Scope of work covers all landscaping and irrigation maintenance services. As I mentioned earlier, 36 locations, including annual tree trimming, irrigation troubleshooting and repair, pruning, weeding, and general debris cleanup. And Urban Habitat has been deemed the lowest responsible bidder. I'm happy to answer any questions there. Ernie.
Thank you, Danny.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 14. Contract agreement with Southern California Fleet Services for fleet service maintenance and repairs for 2022-2023. It's recommended to authorize the general manager to approve a contract agreement with the Southern California Fleet Services Incorporated to perform fleet service maintenance and repairs for all district vehicles and equipment for a not to exceed amount of $100,000 for a period of 1 year. And I might add that's necessary to maintain our fleet of 78 vehicles that we have with the water district. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, but I was going to have Danny provide you with
Okay.
specifics if you would like to hear that. Danny, would you like to go ahead with this one also?
I can. Thank you, General Manager Wallum. Similar to our previous item, this is an annual contract that we seek approval for. We do have a fleet of 78 vehicles. About 90% of our current vehicles, 3,500 GVW and below, are leased. And Southern California Fleet Services is one of the approved vendors to work on those leased vehicles. Also, one of the reasons why we went with Southern California Fleet is they are a vendor that comes to our facility, insured to do work at our facility. Previously, we had several staff members shagging their vehicles or taking their vehicles to different locations throughout the city to get an oil change. It was costly. Then to take it to a higher location, it was another costly item. Also, if it needed some other repair and they couldn't do it in that day, it couldn't be secured behind a fence. So those are a lot of the reasons why a few years back we went to Southern California Fleet Services. We are looking at different ways to save money and potentially, well, we are evaluating other means and potentially may do this in-house, but those are things that we'll have to bring back to the board at a different time. That concludes my report.
All right, thanks, Danny. Yes, we're constantly evaluating the way we do things to be sure that we are decreasing our cost.
Okay.
At every point that we can.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Nancy?
Just a couple. If you don't
Okay.
mind. Could you, I've only been in the yard a couple times to pass through, but I don't remember seeing a facility that set up for like jacking up cars. How are they changing oil in those pickup trucks? I know you guys are real conscientious of safety procedures, but I want to make sure that they have the equipment there at the yard they need to do this stuff. Are they driving them up on ramps, or do they have a lift, or what are they doing for that? And is the lift inspected? Maybe you could just run through that.
Certainly. Great questions. I'll hopefully unpack those questions in the order that they were asked. The district currently at the corporate yard has a roughly 3,000 square foot maintenance building. It's the largest building right about smack middle of our corporate yard, immediately north of the canopy where we park our fleet. To the west side of that building, we do have lifts that are installed. They have been there, some have been there for many years, and some and others are newer. Our facilities, all facilities are required to do a risk assessment. They do go through inspections. They go through Cal OSHA inspections. So all of our equipment, from larger hand-used equipment to larger equipment like lifts, go through an evaluation and make sure that they're safe to be utilized. So
they have what they need to do the job they're doing.
Yeah.
I fear they're out there crawling under those trucks at night to change oil and.
We've had that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go. No, that's it. Thanks.
No, and just to end that, just like any repair shop or oil change location, we capture that with the equipment that's needed. We store it, gets picked up and recycled just like the rest of these shops here in town, or a lot of the parts supply houses have those opportunities. So it's conducted the same way that you see that most people are accustomed to.
Okay, my concern was for the guys getting under their vehicles, not so much of the distribution of the old oil, but good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything further? Okay, moving on to item 15. First supplement to the memorandum of understanding regarding collaboration on the Coachella Valley Salt and Nutrient Management Plan. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to execute the first supplement to the memorandum of understanding, MOU, with the Coachella Valley Salt and Nutrient Management Plan agencies regarding collaboration and costs sharing on the CV Coachella Valley Salt Nutrient Management Plan update, and augment the capital budget, creating a project in the amount of $400,000. Arden?
Yes, thank you. This, I think to most people in the Valley, when they hear the Salt Nutrient Management Plan, they don't really realize how important this document is to us. We went back and Steve is going to give you some background here. This probably has a conglomeration, a collaboration that's larger than anything yet I've seen to date with all of the public water purveyors in the Valley. And so with that said, Steve, do you want to give them the background on this and why you've seen this before, but now we're at the next level. So Steve, you want to take it from there?
Yes, General Manager Wallum, I'd be happy to. I will say my internet connection is a little intermittent, so I'm going to leave my video off for this portion. If you recall, back in 2020, we entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Coachella Valley Salt Nutrient Management Plan agencies, and that includes City of Palm Springs, Coachella Valley Water District, City of Coachella, Desert Water Agency, India Water Agency, Authority, Mission Springs Water District, Myomadoom Mutual Water Company, and Valley Sanitary District. Once we entered that MOU, we prepared two documents, two work plans. One was the Coachella Valley Salt Nutrient Management Plan Development Work Plan, which laid out the steps that would be necessary to take to get an updated salt nutrient management plan and ultimately receive approval by the regional board and culminate in a basin plan amendment for implementation of said salt nutrient management plan, dealing with salt nutrients throughout the Coachella Valley. The other component, the other work plan, was a Coachella Valley SNMP groundwater monitoring program, which established a groundwater monitoring program to start evaluating salt nutrient throughout the valley. Both of those work plans were approved by the regional board back in 2021. So now that that was approved, we have regional board approval for the steps that need to be taken to get to an approved salt nutrient management plan. From there, the CV SNMP agencies, through a competitive RFP process, selected West Yost Associates to prepare the salt nutrient management plan update. The cost of that plan is a total not to exceed fee of $2.68 million, including a 5% contingency. CVWD will contract directly with West Yost, and CVWD received their board's approval for that contracting in May, and approval of this same first supplement to the MOU in front of our board today. Right there, I'm going to pause and answer a question from Director Gracia.
Thank you. Good places to do that. It's my understanding that what we approved in 2000 was rejected by the state and was sent back for some kind of changes. And further, my understanding is that change is requiring now for the first time, this is a huge, to me, it's a big deal, that the inclusion of salt loading for imported water be part of the calculation. And I wondered if you could elaborate on that and kind of fill the board in on what that might mean and what it means to me as something maybe completely different than other directors. But to me, it's it leaps us. We're literally, there were directors in the 70s asking for this to be part of the discussion and was rejected because they couldn't get the votes on their own boards. I'm speaking specifically for our water agency to the south that refused to include this as part of their area of study in the area of water importation, which is the biggest reason why we're seeing such massive declines in our water quality. And perhaps you could tell me that I'm all wet and that this has nothing to do with that. I wondered if you might elaborate on those thoughts.
Good question, Director Gracia. I'll do my best to respond to that with the information I have on hand. Three of the SNMP agencies that I mentioned prepared a salt nutrient management plan in 2015 and submitted it to the regional board for approval. The regional board, to put it bluntly, did not agree with the findings of that plan. At the time, Mission Springs did not agree with the findings and analysis done in that plan. And ultimately, the regional board did not approve that plan. However, the regional board did not have the authority at the time to provide or require specific recommendations and numerical objectives. Come along the 2018 recycled water policy that was adopted by the State Water Resource Control Board. That policy put into effect and gave the regional boards the authority to implement numerical objectives for salt nutrient management plans. As part of that policy, the way I understand it, that also opened the door to include items not just recycled water, but imported water, and really looking holistically at salt nutrient impacts to a basin. So that's what happened. Our regional board, following that 2018 recycled water policy update, the Colorado River Basin Regional Board formally rejected the 2015 salt nutrient management plan and provided recommendations that we move forward with. That's what led to the two work plans that I mentioned and got us here today. I just want to add that going forward, this is going to be about a 4.5–5 year process that will ultimately culminate in an approved salt nutrient management plan, and includes technical advisory committees, including regional board staff and agency staff and public and also stakeholders. And there'll also be a stakeholder advisory committee. So it's a very comprehensive process to get to the finish line and ultimately, again, culminate in an approved SNMP that can be implemented.
So if I might just conclude my thoughts with based on your comments, this will put an end to the ability of other agencies to deny, which they've been doing for 50 years, that importing high salt content water has no deleterious effects to our water situation here in the Coachella Valley. This is a huge milestone, and I'm grateful for all of those that fought behind the scenes to make sure that they put those that silliness to rest, that importing water that's twice as salt as the water that we created the Desert Water Agency to import water from the Delta, which is more than twice as good as the water that we're being forced to import into our basin, which is driving mineral content through the roof and having a horrible effects on every aspect of our lives. And people are told, well, just get a pumice stone and rub the the salt content off the side of your pools and quit complaining that it's a horrible treatment of the public's desires for better water quality. And I'm grateful that we're finally making some headway on that subject. I'm also probably grateful that nobody here from DWA, but nothing makes me angrier than when public agencies lie to the public and treat them as though their concerns don't matter to the public.
Thank you, Director Grashaw. I worked through this next segment, and I will touch on that imported water component again. The first supplement of this MOU, or before I proceed, President Martin, are there any other questions at this time, or can I finish the discussion?
Nancy? Randy, do you have any questions? Okay, no, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the first supplement of this MOU, it includes a mutually agreed upon cost share schedule. That cost share between the SNMP agencies has several weighted factors, and that includes if you are a state water project contractor that imports water to the basin. So Director Gracia, there is a percentage applied to those importing water to the basin, which solidifies your point that they do contribute to salt and nutrient impacts to the basin. And also if you produce recycled water, if an agency is a participant in the SGMA alternative plan or plans process, and also based on the number of water and sewer connections. So there's percentages applied to all these factors, which ultimately result in how much an agency's cost share is. For Mission Springs, we have a 7.8% cost share for any costs incurred to complete this plan. Now, and I already mentioned that implementation will occur over the next 5 years. And again, once we receive regional board approval after that 5 years, the next step would be a basin plan amendment to formalize everything and make it a requirement for any producers and any importers in the Coachella Valley groundwater basin. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to field additional questions.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
No, thank you. Very, very well covered. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to
Okay.
item 16, acceptance of the emergency repair of 150 linear feet of 8-inch sanitary line and 5 service connections on Acoma Avenue. It's recommended to accept the emergency repair of 150 linear feet of 8-inch sanitary sewer on Acoma Avenue project as complete and authorize the release of retention money held for Trico General Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $3,994.08, 35 days after the filing notice of completion. That sounds pretty self-explanatory, but Arden, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, no, you've seen this before, of course, and then this ends basically the actions that you need to consider for this. It always does in any project. Eric Weck will provide you with an explanation if you need something or questions, answer your questions.
Are there any
So,
are
Eric?
there any questions from the board?
No questions, but I think a little, synopsis of what this is about, maybe for the people we have online that don't know.
Okay, Eric can do that. Yeah.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, General Manager Wallum and President and members of the board. So at the March 21st, 2022 board meeting, the Board of Directors approved the contract for the emergency repair and installation of 150 feet of 8-inch sanitary sewer and 5 service connections with the contractor Trico Engineering. The board action for tonight allows for the recordation of the notice of completion and the release of the retention monies that MSWD is holding on to, and will release those funds 35 days after the recordation of the notice of completion to Trico Engineering. The project is complete and it's been inspected, and staff recommends that executing the recordation of the notice of completion and releasing the retention monies back to Trico 35 days after the recordation of the notice of completion.
Okay.
That's basically the project in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Nancy?
No, it was a leak to begin with, correct? That started this whole thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay,
It-
just
Yeah.
the source.
The source was I believe it was a tamarisk tree that was planted.
That
and
was the
wrapped its,
tamarisk tree one.
uh,
Okay, thanks.
Roots around.
Okay, Director Gracia, you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, what was the total amount? I'm seeing 400,000 here. Was that the total or tell me what this whole thing cost? Just
Around $86,000. I believe the $400,000 is reference to the previous board item.
okay, so the cost to replace 165 feet, is that what it was?
It was 150 feet, sir, and it was by Trico, and the dollar amount was it was around $86,000, if my memory serves me correctly, but we're just releasing the retention monies that we withheld from them to ensure that the project was complete and that they paid their subcontractors.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anything further? Moving on to item 17, award the on-call potable water and sanitary sewer repair services with Trico General Engineering and TriStar Contracting 2 Incorporated. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to do all things necessary to complete the on-call potable water and sanitary sewer repair services contracts for the 2 contractors listed below. And they are listed by Trico General Engineering and TriStar Contracting, Inc. I assume Eric's going to be doing this.
No.
No?
I'm gonna have
Okay.
Brian.
Brian.
But,
all right.
but I mean, basically what is happening is we're seeing more and more development. It's all good. We're seeing more challenges and we need to be sure we have the resources. This helps us if we ever do in an emergency situation, have more leaks than we have people to fix those leaks basically. But go on, Brian.
Thank you, General Manager Wallum. President Martin, on April 12th, 2022, MSWD issued a request for proposals for on-call potable water and sanitary sewer repair services, very similar to the issue that we had in the preceding item. On the proposal date, May 5th, 5 proposals were received from experienced and qualified contractors. After reviewing the proposals, staff identified 2 contractors as the best to provide this service for MSWD under the proposed scope of work. The initial term of this contract is anticipated to be from January 2022 to June 2023. We do have the option to extend the agreement and negotiate revised prices, if any, for up to 3 additional 1-year terms. So this is really going to help us respond faster to any issues that we may see in the system. We spend a lot of money going out and cleaning and closed circuit televising sewers. If we see a problem, this contract will allow us to respond in a quicker manner.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? Nancy? Director Gracia?
No questions or comments at this time.
Director Duncan?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item 18, approve change order number 2 and contract amendment for well 24 electrical panel rehabilitation. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to negotiate and execute 2 contract modifications related to additional work required by Southern California Edison for well 24 electrical panel rehabilitation. The 2 contract modifications are change order number 2 with RIC Construction for a not to exceed amount of $21,362 for a total of $552,417.32, and contract amendment with Murrow Development Consultants for a not to exceed amount of $15,000, which brings the total up to $90,000 for construction management and inspection services. Arden?
Yeah, again, I'm going to let Brian
Okay.
present this item.
Thank you, General Manager Wallum. President Martin, the item you have in front of you, back in June 2021, we executed the contract with RIC Construction Company for the construction of the electrical panel rehabilitation at well 24. After we awarded that contract in October, we received direction from Southern California Edison, SCE, requiring additional work not included in the original design and subsequent bidding documents. Therefore, the additional work required by SCE had to then be asked and requested through the contractor. As we were going through that process and going through that change order, that also pushed the deadlines because of supply chains and things like that. Now we had to extend the contract for the construction manager as well. So it's a snowball effect. We had changes to the contract, changed the contract itself for construction, and then the construction management as well. Be open to answer any questions at this time.
Okay. Nancy, any questions? Director Gracia, any questions?
Just a comment, really. This is something I have some familiarity with. In my business, the hard part of running a system of any kind involving the control of water is the brains. And in my own business, I always had trouble keeping people around to build systems exactly, panels and control systems exactly like this. I had finally found the perfect guy about 15 years ago, or 10, well, now maybe 10 years ago. And one day he called me, he said he's not coming back to work. He's going to work for a Toyota plant that's turning over to a new plant called Tesla. And he walked out, and these guys are hard to find. They're hard to keep. And so I understand completely how these things can get delayed. So tell the contractor that I understand as one director anyway, that the trouble that they're probably going through with this, there's not that many people around that know how to do these kinds of systems. And when you get one, you need to be nice to them and pay them a lot. And so with that, I thank you for all the effort that you've gone through over the years. Now we're at years to get this system up and running. And I'm glad to see that it's coming around.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, thank you.
Did Randy comment? Oh,
I thought he said,
thank you.
okay,
no comment.
okay.
Yeah. Item 19, contract agreement with B81 Paving Inc. for pavement repairs for water and sewer projects for 2022-2023. Is recommended authorize the general manager to approve a contract agreement with B81 Paving Inc. titled pavement repairs for water and sewer projects for the fiscal year 2022-2023 for not to exceed amount of $250,000 for a period of 1 year, and authorize the general manager to do all things necessary to complete the project. That sounds like a pretty routine.
Yes, same thing. You've
Same
actually
thing,
had
yeah.
this in front of you also before. We had to modify it a bit because we underestimated what that cost would be, and the workload is increasing.
Okay.
Again, we're going to have Mr. Friend present this item for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe Manager Wallum. President Martin, this is a routine item. Each year we go out to bid. What you have in front of you today is a request or consideration for a contract approved for B81. They are the lowest responsive bidder. We did open bid, and in the beginning of May 2022, we sent out requests for bids to our Planet Bids portal. May 26th, we opened bids, we received 3 of those bids. The lowest responsible bid is B81. And this is, our General Manager Wallum did mention that this is an increased cost. We are trying to get caught up with some, with patches that are not current within this fiscal year. They're carryover from the previous year. And the reason they were carried over is this particular contract, or this year we had a lot larger leaks, a few different ones that required a lot more time than a typical bell holes. And we also, in agreement with the city of Desert Hot Springs, in the numbered streets, First Street, Second Street, Third Street, the numbered streets here in Desert Hot Springs, the city has a contractor that's doing gas line work for the Southern California Gas. And the idea was they wanted to come through and cap the street once that work was done. It was anticipated to be done much sooner, but they asked the district to go in there and make sure that we did any repairs and that we could and take care of any type of trench work that we had to. So we focused on that, taking us out of sequence than we would typically do and applying them to the older patches. So This year, we are increasing that to cover that so we can get current, and then subsequent years will be, the idea is that we'll stay current with all patches that have been done in that current fiscal year. This contract also allows for an additional 1-year term for 3 additional 1-year terms going forward. So I don't know if there's any other highlights. It does cover everything that we do in the street, from water repairs, sewer repairs, from maintenance, installation of services, leaks. So anytime that we disrupt the service or the street, we open it up, we put a temporary patch in, as we've discussed in past years. This is to come in and permanently patch it. This scope has been broadened in the past to include concrete work for repairs of curbs and gutters and sidewalks, similar to what was discussed in previous items, where we want to make sure we have resources to take care of those repairs when needed, whether routine or emergency work. And we've been, so far, been very satisfied with B81. We're happy to see them be the low bidder again on this contract. I'm happy to answer any additional questions if there are any.
Okay. Director Gracia, any questions or comments?
No questions, no comments at this time.
Okay. Vice President Wright.
Yeah, I just got a inquisitive. The bids, they're so far apart. The 81 is so low compared to the next one, and the next one's low compared to the next one. I mean, that's kind of a big spread.
We have seen this in the past, be that type of spread. And the first year when we did it and we saw a spread like this, it was assumed that they misunderstood the intent of the scope. And after further investigation, our assumption was incorrect. Again, this has got an opportunity to be bid out to extend it for 3 additional. And sometimes contractors want to make sure that they have costs in there to cover their inflation. B81 understands what needs to be done. They understand that we disperse the work typically quarterly until we get enough so we can bring them in, so that we can get as many done in that quarterly period rather than call them out once a month and having them mobilized. So
You're okay with it?
It is a good spread.
A good price.
It's a great price.
The other two obviously don't want the project.
Well, it could be looked at that way.
The other two did not want the project.
I think the bigger concern is most people see it being so low. What are we going to get? Are we getting?
That's why I commented.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to speculate on that, and I'm glad I was correct. If it wasn't that B81 hasn't been contracted with the district in the past, and we haven't experienced their work and their product, we would likely have asked more questions like, "Hey, are you sure this is what you want to bid on this contract?" So, for us, we are lucky we get to reap that low cost, and we did look into that closer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on to item 20. Acceptance of bill of sale for the new Dollar General. We're buying a new Dollar General store.
See, and I was going to use that as a lead to say this isn't what it appears.
It's recommended to authorize the general manager to execute the bill of sale for the water and sewer infrastructure for the new Dollar General project located at 11405 Palm Drive, Desert Hot Springs, as contributed assets. Take it away, Arden.
Yes, and Eric can go over this. It is very simply a mechanism that we use for them to dedicate the services that they built to connect to our system. And that's how it works, everything we do. This is, Danny brought this to me a number of years ago, and there are different ways we can do this. This is one of the more simple ways to get that infrastructure dedicated to the district. So with that, Eric, did you want to take it from there?
Absolutely. Thank you, General Manager Wallum. Okay, so typically for smaller infill development projects like this one, the new Dollar General, minor water and sewer improvements are needed to provide service for the infill development project. So minor improvements will include connection to water, to the existing sewer lines, the installation of valves and things like that within the public right of way. These improvements connecting the new development to the district's existing water and sewer lines were constructed by the developer. These improvements were inspected and were determined that they met the district standards. So in order to incorporate these public improvements into the district's water and sewer system, staff will recommend to the board to authorize the general manager to execute the bill of sale for the water and sewer infrastructure for the new Dollar General project located at 11405 Palm Drive as contributed assets. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Director Gracia?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, Vice President Wright? Randy, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item 21, under discussion items, Mission Springs Water District Regional Water Reclamation Facility update. Anything new or?
Oh, yes, I know we've been spending a lot of time talking about that the last few weeks. Steve is going to give us a presentation on, the construction activities, et cetera.
Okay, Steve, take it away.
Thank you, President Martin, members of the board. We already covered the funding component of the update, so I'll stick to the construction component. JSJ continued construction on the regional plant. They've completed excavating for the plant drain pump station and the SBR tanks. They've completed installation of the shear walls around the SBR tanks and leaving the operations building area at full grade. I believe most of you saw that at the groundbreaking last Friday. I want to give a congratulations to the entire team that was part of that groundbreaking event. That was just an amazing event. It was great to finally be at that stage of the project. Right now, I'm going to attempt to share my screen, so I hope I don't crash here, but I'm just going to show a video today since I am having a little bit of connectivity issues. But what you see in front of you is the main SBR tank area. All these forms are going to be different pours for the SBR tank slab. Over here to the bottom left of the screen, that is the plant drain pump station. The first concrete pour was—
Steve, we're not getting your.
There's nothing on the screen.
Oh, okay, then I'll keep it simple. They completed the first concrete pour on Tuesday. It went off without a hitch. They're continuing to monitor temperatures and temperature differentials in the concrete slab for the plant drain pump station. But to date, there have been no issues. They have the whole area wrapped up with what they call a thermal blanket temperature control for that process. This is kind of a test pour to see how it's going to go for the rest of the project, to confirm if we're going to need cooling pipes in the rest of the slabs and walls that are going to be poured. In addition, Yellow Jacket Drilling has completed both of the monitoring wells, the 2 monitoring wells that were installed. So those are ready for sampling. I spoke with operations staff last Friday, and they plan to start monthly sampling starting this month. In addition, the conveyance line is in final design now. It's nearing completion, and staff expects to put that out to bid in a couple weeks. And lastly, the Area M2 collection system. The consultant has completed the 100% design update, and it was received, and staff is currently completing a round of plan check for that before it's finalized and also put out to bid. That's all I have this month for an update. I'd be happy to answer any question.
Okay. Any questions from the or comments from the board? Nancy? Director Gracia?
I would refer to the public to my comments during the budget process at this meeting.
Okay. All right. Director Duncan?
No, thank you.
Nancy, you said you had a comment.
I do. I have a comment. I'd just like to thank Steve Ledbetter and staff. If you guys hadn't been so persistent and had such good paperwork and everything done, we wouldn't have gotten any grant monies. So I really think that you guys did a great job. Steve, especially you did. I know you were very persistent with the state up there, and I know that they wouldn't have given you that approval unless we really got the grant. They're not going to back down now. So anyway, I just wanted to thank all you guys for all your work that you did putting into all of that. It's been, I don't know how long has it been going on, for maybe a year or something, trying to put this plant together and pay for it. So thank you for all your hard work. And thanks, Steve.
Okay. Moving on to the discussion items. Mission Springs Water District Regional Water, well, we've already got that. Item 22, Critical Services Center and Administrative Building Update. Anything new?
Brian has a
Okay,
presentation for you
All right.
today.
Brian?
Thank you, President Martin. Yes, it is a pleasure to present an update for the Critical Service Center and Administrative Building update today. This is one of the older schematic designs you've seen in the past. One of the comments that we received during this project was we had some areas up here to the north that we talked about possibly to save cost, to reduce the area of pavement and things of like that in that nature. There were also questions about the traffic flow through the headquarters site. And our contractors have been, or excuse me, our architect, Renewal Clark, has been working with us. Some of the things you see here notable from the past designs where the staff parking was outside the wall. The new design reduces a lot of the area of development to the north along our north property line. You do see the heavy pavement that goes through the site now and shows up going up through out in front in case we have any deliveries to the actual building. And then you see a gate at this location and a gate at this location. Therefore, everything north of this area, including what we have as employee parking, is now behind the gate and secure. So they have reduced the area that we're going to be developing from a cost saving perspective and provided additional security for our staff. They are continuing to upgrade this simple layout that we've had in the past. They've gone to a lot more detail now. You see a lot more writing on this, and they're actually breaking down some things. I want to really focus on the boardroom. One of the questions that came up during our discussions was, hey, what type of dais would you like to see? You now see one that is slightly curved to allow everyone to see each other and still see the audience and things that would be participating in out here. You also see the closed session general manager's offices behind the dais. Walking into the lobby, you then see the women's and women's restroom for the public and things of that nature, and even a conference room outside in case we had a customer that wanted to come in and have a discussion regarding, let's say, the customer portal. We can simply take them right into an outside conference room. So we're still looking at some of the functionalities of this of the lobby area. This again, looking at the lobby area, here's the men's and women's restroom again, and this lobby area here. As you may recall, a lot of this design is based on the East Valley Water District Administrative Building, and they have ample areas for seating out here as well as a larger customer service area. We have found through the COVID process that by appointment seems to give our customers a better customer experience. We're more well prepared when they come in. We know what they want to talk about, and we're able to focus that. In addition, with the web portal that we now have available to, we try to push them and encourage them to use that portal. By using the portal, they can pay their bill, they can see their consumption actually right up until the prior day, and as well as other conservation messaging and rebates and things like that. So we're trying to find a way to possibly continue to investigate what best use of this space is, because as we bring people in, they sign up for new accounts. That's when we have their attention. That's when we really want to encourage them to use the portal. So we're trying to look at this space a little bit differently, knowing what we know now versus when the building was originally constructed. Also continuing to move what I would say west, closer to the operations building. A lot of this stays the same. You have the kitchen along the north area. You have the women's and men's locker rooms. And again, knowing that the operations building is over here to the left or to the west, you see all the operations facilities in this area here. You see a bullpen, you see lay down areas, workstations, director of ops office, superintendents, things of that nature, water production and things like that. So you see all these numbers. These numbers basically are what is necessary and what is actually provided. That's why one number is usually higher than the other. But yes, they're going through all of the occupancy calculations right now as we speak. One of the things that was also commented on our last meeting regarding this was the actual facade. You see, this would be the admin building looking at it from the south to the north, the south area. You see the roof structure as it comes up. This is the boardroom in this area. You have the general public coming in through the front doors. And then you see as you go farther west, closer again to the operations side, you see a little bit more of a warehouse thing consistent to what's in the area. Looking from the east, looking from the north, looking at the back of the building, you don't see a lot of those roof lines that sort of extend out like you do on the west. But again, where those are established is in the public areas for decorative purposes. And one of the things we talked about was this seemed to be very consistent with the cheapest and best model as far as what we would be providing in the sunlight and things like that, knowing that this is the east side and things of that nature. Looking at the operations building, we talked about earlier in this meeting about how we were doing our maintenance on site. We're continuing with a 3-bay setup similar to what we have currently. You see a small little walk-in area for a couple of offices here for staff that would occupy these buildings. And then you see a warehouse facility here that is a little bit larger than the one we have now. And that's of course because to provide space for future expansion and things like that. Work areas back here for testing meters if we decide to continue to do that, as well as a wash bay for our vehicles. What does this look like from the north and the south, or excuse me, east and the west? You see that the 3 overhead doors getting into the bays areas. You see the backside where they can pull through. And then you see the 4 areas that can get easy access into the warehouse. And then you have nothing on this side. It's not a pull through area. And then you have doors for staff to walk through and get into the building. Next steps moving forward, you can see off to the right, these are what I was talking about with the roof lines and the way we decided that was option 3, as I recall. At our next board meeting in July, we're going to have a presentation by the architect, Renaud Clark. We're going to evaluate some of the scope changes. When we first brought this item to you, we were looking at 2 locations, one on Palm Drive, another one at our corporate yard. We've now changed that location. When we also brought this to you, we were looking at a phased approach and maybe not looking at the operations building, but we've talked about that now. So we want to bring all of those costs to you before, so we can make an informed decision on how to move forward. There may be an opportunity to have a second tour of the Palm Springs Unified School District and maybe also the East Valley. There's a lot of things that we've been seeing as we go through the detailed design that we'd like to see again. So we may be setting up those not only for ourselves, but the board as well. And then of course, the updated design presentation prior to the development of the bid package. Basically, before we go to bid, we want to make sure that everybody's on board with the cost and how to move forward. That concludes my presentation and update. Are there any questions?
Okay. Director Grasha, any comments or questions?
Well, he's just, his last sentence, he wants to make sure everybody's on board with the cost. We're at 33 million. Has it changed since last week or last month? And are you settling on 33 million? Where are we at with that?
Well, I know there's been a lot of increases in the consumer price index and things like that. Hopefully, when we get farther closer to the end of the year, especially with what the Fed did yesterday with the 75-point increase in the borrowing rate, that will hopefully the economy and the inflation will be under a little bit better control and we'll get a better price for those things. But yes, right now, the cost has not changed since we presented that at the workshop.
Okay, and can you, since we had this interesting news that came to us at this meeting about the regional plant and the effect that that might have on our ability to move forward with this, are we being careful not to do too much? You know, I expected the general manager to follow the direction given by the board, and you know, when we approved the regional plant, and that was to do all things necessary. One of those things was to make sure we had funding in place to be able to pay for the work before we started doing the work. He didn't do that. I'm worried that you know, if we're not getting too far ahead on this, we could probably pull this off if Nancy's magic grant money comes in, and I would be probably in favor, even with the added expense of going ahead sooner rather than later. But I would certainly advise this management team to put this on the back burner until we have solidified the funding arrangements that might be coming forward on the regional plan. So with that, I say thank you, and I hope I didn't offend anybody too much, but good God, people.
Okay, Nancy?
Yeah, I'd just like to remind the board that Arturo went through all of that financing stuff about both projects, and that this particular project will be paid for not by rates, but by our property taxes that we get. And so that had nothing to do, it's separate than the regional plant, the way that would be taken care of, even if it didn't have any grants. So, so as far as the financial thing goes, we've had several meetings on it already. And that was what Arturo had come up with, and he told us all and described it all. And so it's already been out there. So I would imagine there's those meetings that you could go back and look at and listen to again if you need to.
Okay.
We have the capability of throttling this back or moving slowly if we want to, building it in phases. There are different aspects to this that we can consider as we move forward. And yes, we will have funding in place and finalized before we're going to make any major moves on this building.
Okay. Director Duncan, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I like the fine tuning that's coming out on this. Even something as simple as the employee parking being back behind the gate. That's really a plus nowadays. And yeah, like Nancy said, you know, if you know basic third grade math, the way Arturo gives a presentation, you can understand exactly what he says. And yeah, we had funding in place long before we broke ground. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. We got two items on the consent agenda, the approval of minutes and the register of demands. Everybody take a look at those over the weekend, and we'll make any corrections or changes or answer any questions on Monday. Okay. Correspondence. Item 25, thank you letter and certificate from Desert Hot Springs High School. And also a thank you letter and certificate from Desert Hot Springs Rotary. The second one I found interesting is for Carol because of her donation and work with that. Congratulations to Carol. She's a stellar employee and works a lot with the community from Little League and to Rotary, and she's really a rock star in my view. Yeah.
It's a good word for her, good name for her,
Yeah.
rock star.
Yeah. Moving on to reports, director's reports. I'm going to do mine on Monday. Nancy, you want to do yours today or? Monday?
I don't know if I even have any, to tell you the truth, so I guess I'll do it Monday.
Well, if you
I
find
can.
something between now and Monday, we'll do it on Monday. Okay. All right. And Randy, do you want to make a report now or on Monday?
Monday, if I could, please.
Okay. General manager's report.
Actually, we've talked about a lot of things that I would be commenting on, so I don't have anything additional to what you already see. As you can see, we are pretty comprehensive in letting you know what we do. So with that said, under my report will be first, like Arturo said earlier, that we need to give you this month's financial report. So Arturo, would you do that right now?
Yes, thank you, General Manager Wallum, President Martin, and distinguished members of the board. Like I said earlier, this is the April 30th, 2022 internal financial statement summary that shows where the district is at April 30th, standing right now at $4.8 million in revenue over expenses, in budget $2 million above what was budgeted from both revenue and expenses in looking at the totals. As you can see, our cash is still sitting at $46.8 million. And again, that number is going to increase in May with the collection of the property taxes, the second installment for the year, leaving roughly $50 million for the district to use for these various projects that we have going on. Of that, $16 million right now is sitting in our Wells Fargo unrestricted cash, and the remainder, $31 million is sitting in our CalTrust account. And as you can see, the CalTrust did go down comparing one year to the next, roughly 300,000, primarily the unrealized losses on those investments that do not become realized until we start pulling those funds from the CalTrust. And that's the main reason also that we want to do financing as opposed to pulling those monies, because as soon as we do, those losses become realized. And we want to keep those funds in there as long as possible so that we do not lose out on those funds. And all the backup for all these numbers is, again, is in the follow-up pages of the report to answer a lot of the questions as to what's included in some of those cash items, revenue items. And that's, again, by fund, from the water to the sewer department. It's all in here that anyone can take a look at so they can see everything that we're reporting. And as you know, we report everything on these financial statements. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Arturo.
Okay, thank you. Public Affairs Report.
Yes, Marion. And
Thank
good
you.
job with organizing this groundbreaking. It was greatly successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, General Manager Wallem. Good afternoon, President. I have a very short PowerPoint today that I'd like to share with you, and I'd like to highlight some of the activities during the last month that the Public Affairs Department participated.
Okay.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. We participated in a handful of community events, including a special portal presentation for the Friends of the Desert Library, and our third Water 101 community presentation that Mrs. Edmondson mentioned earlier. We will also be hosting our fourth and final Water 101 presentation next week. To date, we've received very positive feedback from the participants, and I anticipate bringing this series back to the community next fall after a short summer break. I also wanted to note that we will be hosting another blood drive on Wednesday, July 13th. Donations made that day will count in the LifeStream Blood Bank's 9 Cities Blood Drive Challenge that kicks off next month. This is really a great way for us to show our support for the Desert Hot Springs community while also supporting a worthy cause. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the exciting groundbreaking event that took place last Friday at the new regional plant. We had a good mix of community leaders, business representatives, and elected officials, including members of the Desert Hot Springs and Palm Springs City Councils, County Board of Supervisors, Valley Sanitation District, DWA, CVWD, the SoCal Gas Company, DVBA, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and College of the Desert. We also had representatives from Congressman Raul Ruiz and Assemblyman Eduardo Garcia in attendance. We did receive several media outlets covered our event, including KESQ, KMIR, the Yukon Report, Desert Sun, and also on Aqua's website. We will be continuing to promote the project, and we are also working on a joint op-ed with Valley Sanitation District and a new billboard design for our MSWD billboard located on Palm Drive. A full recording of the groundbreaking is available on our website and also on our social media channels. And I also have a quick slideshow that I'd like to show you real quick that highlights some of the photos from the event.
And the Academy Award goes to Marion Champion.
Exactly. There's a lot more photos available. Those were just some of the few that I selected, but we will have some of those available on our website as well. And that video is also already on our website if anybody'd like to take a look at it.
Yes, that was awesome. That was awesome.
It's also once again time to publish our annual water quality report. This year's report includes our water quality data along with information on rebates, conservation, payment assistance, and the new customer service portal and ongoing projects and more. The 12-page report has been printed and is slated to be mailed in the next week or so. I will have digital copies, including a Spanish version that will be posted on our website. This year, we incorporated a special QR code feature into the report. Throughout the report, you're going to see these QR codes, and they link to different videos that relate to content found in the report. For example, when we talk about the new customer service portal, we have a QR code that will link to the online tutorial. So they're sprinkled throughout the report, and I really think it adds an interactive capability with our customers. We've also developed a short special Understanding Your Water Quality Report video that we will be sharing on social media starting in July. And here is that video.
MSWD, we care about our customers. I am a MSWD customer, as well as a lot of our employees are members of the community.
To make sure we deliver a safe supply of our award-winning water, MSWD conducts thousands of tests every year and details the results in our water quality report, which is published annually by July 1st.
We create our annual water quality report to ensure that safety is the #1 priority, as well as being transparent with our customers.
This report shows the findings of the most recent water tests conducted for regulated and unregulated substances, the range of measurements, and the average figures from those tests. Those statistics can be compared to safety standards established by the State Water Resources Control Board and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, which regulate the water we serve customers. The two agencies determine which substances are tested and how frequently water samples are taken. Water providers are required to publish the results of those tests, demonstrating how the water supply complies with all mandatory and voluntary standards.
As a member of the community, the water quality report helps assure me and my family that we have safe, clean water to drink every day.
Because substances in water can be detected in extremely small amounts, some units are measured in parts per million, which is equal to 4 drops of water in a 55-gallon drum. Others are measured in parts per trillion, equivalent to a single drop in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. In addition to test data, the water quality report contains information about our water and wastewater systems, upcoming projects, even helpful ideas to help you conserve water and protect our groundwater supply.
If our customers have any questions as they go through the water quality report, we are here to help.
Most importantly, you can depend on Mission Springs Water District to deliver water that tastes great and meets all state and federal water quality standards. To see the latest water quality report and learn more about your water, visit mswd.org.
And that concludes my report today. Thank you very much for all your time.
Very good, Marion. Thank you. Anything further, Arden?
Just other than the fact that if you look at our consumer confidence report compared to what I got from, say, CVWD, which is a card, tells me to go to the website. We thought we would continue with the traditional process of giving them the information. So once they have that document, they can sit it down and see the numbers. They don't have to go any other place. And we thought our customer base would appreciate that. So it's a very, very comprehensive report, and my compliments to Marion for putting that together.
Excellent.
And all the staff that helped her do that.
Okay. District council comments.
Yes, we will be having a closed session on Monday, and that will be in the Padilla class action case, item number 31 on today's agenda, and then item number 33 as well, which is Mission Springs Water District versus DWA. So I think it may be a longer than typical closed session. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up to maybe make sure to make room in your calendar for that.
Okay. Director comments, Director Grusha.
Just one thought that I'd like to share, comments regarding the passing of one of our retirees, Rick Johnson. I didn't know Rick very well. I was getting to know him well. We were talking frequently. He had a great interest in the possibility of running for the board at Desert Water Agency as a representative from Division 3. The Riverside County Leadership Forum, which I'm a member of, which has donated in-kind contributions as well as cash contributions to candidates of over $1 million in the last 10 years in Riverside County, had made a commitment to fully fund his campaign. And unfortunately, due to his passing, I just like to ask this board adjourn in his memory, and look forward to your thoughts on his passing as well. Thank you.
Director Duncan.
Yeah, just a couple things real quick. Miriam, again, great job on that video. I'm glad to see you got some staff members in there and left me out. Also, congratulations on putting together the groundbreaking. I know you had a team with you, but I know you were the lead on that. So thank you for putting that together. There were a lot of staff members down there working it. So across the board, everybody gets a thank you and a congratulations. And then Steve Ledbetter, if you're still on, and I know Arden, I know Brian Macy, a lot of our staff has been working, who knows, countless hours and days on getting these grant funding for the treatment plant, getting backup funding in place, and it's finally starting to pay off. Kudos, you guys have done a wonderful job. Thank you. And that's all I have.
Vice President Wright.
Just a couple of comments, I guess, here. I just wanted to mention, I mentioned this to Arden, I think already, that the state board is doing a wastewater assessment needs report. They just put it out, or they just accepted the bid on one of the consultants. So it's in the process right now. And what they're hoping is one of the topics they want to be discussed in this assessment is operations and maintenance costs of wastewater, like your water bill or your sewer bill for disadvantaged communities and people who have trouble paying those operation and maintenance costs on their water bills. So that's something to look at and keep an eye on. And they're working on it right now. There will be comments on it, I would imagine, and whatnot, so that would be something that would really help our customers if there was a pot of money that we could dab into for people who couldn't make their payments. And so if we keep an eye on this, maybe we can keep some comments, if we need to make any comments on it, to maybe make sure that this gets added to it. I would like to see us maybe do that, or maybe Roseanne.
Well, yeah, well, Roseanne, but I've also, I have Marianne helping me with human affairs too.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're just working on it now. So I just wanted us to keep an eye on it. Okay, then anything else? Oh, the other thing was, I told this to Arden too, the night, there was an article in the Desert Sun. I don't know if anybody saw it a few days ago, or maybe it was a week ago, about nitrogen in the soil, air pollution, coming from air pollution. It was a study that Katie Bauer's husband from CVAG. He was the one who helped CVAG with the multi-species habitat conservation plan. He's a biologist. He was a professor at UC Riverside, and he is now retired, but he still does work for the multi-species. And he did a study on the Joshua trees, I think it was, he was studying, that was in the newspaper. And what he found out was that there's nitrogen in the soil, and where that nitrogen came from, it came from pollution from Los Angeles, air pollution from Los Angeles, that is coming into Joshua Tree National Park and dropping not only nitrogen, but a lot of other stuff into the soils because, and it's affecting some of the plants and the Joshua trees. There was an interesting article. Anyway, I just thought it might be something that I know we don't know if it's true or not or that kind of stuff, but I think maybe talking to Cameron or talking to somebody that understands this, we are close enough to Joshua Tree to have possibly our soils also be contaminated with nitrogen in the soil, which could eventually someday affect the groundwater basin. So it just thought I'd throw that
The theory, yeah, I read that. The theory with that is that you've got vegetation then that is created because the nitrogen is essentially a fertilizer. And that promotes the growth of additional vegetation. And that's what's catching on fire. In most deserts, you'll have areas where there isn't any vegetation, but this is promoting that growth. And so that's promoting these fires.
Yeah, so it must be in the soil. So it could be
Yeah.
either be in stormwater runoff or.
Now, I'm not
eventually-
sure it's going to be as big a problem for us in this, because we have asphalt and streets but it is concerning that nitrogen is being dropped by the pollution coming in from LA.
And how long has that been going on?
Yeah, and how long has it been going on? Yeah, it was an interesting article.
It was an interesting article. And I'd also, Little League, I think Carol probably picked up our trophy maybe Monday or whatever we got, what did we get? A plaque or something for sponsoring a Little League team?
Mhm.
I'd like to see it on Monday if possible. I was
Marion,
gonna
can you
try to
bring
go
that?
on Saturday to help pick it up, but
Yes.
I didn't make it.
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, that was it.
Okay. I want to restate the kudos to Marion and staff for the stellar work they did putting on the groundbreaking. And one person that I haven't given a lot of acknowledgement to, and for that I apologize. I know I tease him a little bit on his sometimes long presentations, but Steve Ledbetter, you've been doing an amazing job and working with the water district and working hard to get us the funding and just doing an outstanding job for the water district. And I really, really appreciate it. And I also appreciate the work that Arden and Brian and the rest of the staff here at the water district and our attorney just doing amazing work. So on that note, if there is nothing further, the meeting is adjourned.